Okay, hello ladies and gentlemen, Forrest over here, and welcome back to another reading live stream. Now, before we begin, I do have two things to note here. One is an announcement, and one is more of an advisory kind of thing here. First and foremost, we'll start with the announcement first because it doesn't involve the book, but it will involve something that I did initially say I was going to do. Now, if you've seen my community post, and by the time you're probably watching this, what I'm about to announce has probably already happened. But I will be reacting to the Nintendo Direct that came out earlier today. Well, technically it's yesterday, but you know what I'm saying. I'll be reacting to that on top of a few other things that have caught my attention from word of mouth alongside it, so that we got plenty of things to react to and what I think about them. Also, yeah, well, there's no really also on that one. But yeah, so that's the idea. Tomorrow I'll be doing that. Um, but now for the second part of what I've got to say before I read the book. I'm gonna say right now, for the first two parts of the book, they were PG-13. The first two parts were pretty PG-13, like kind of I stuff going on there. But from this point on, we're gonna. It seems like we're gonna kind of cross, or at least be right near the border between a PG-13 and an R rating. By the time I finish reading part 3, which will be chapters 19 through 27, you probably will understand where I'm coming from. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with day 19. Suicide Notes by Michael Thomas Ford, part 3. Where is my bookmark? There it is. Alright, let's do this. I did got some tea in case I get kind of tired. So there's that. Also, as a bit of a thing for anybody watching, I will be reading these books, but every so, like these chapters. But if there's like a space in between paragraphs, or if I'm at the end of the chapter, um, I will be reading chat, okay? So either at the end of a chapter, or if there's space in between two paragraphs, I'll read it. Alright? Basically a scene transition. So yeah, there's that. Just so we're all clear and nobody says, well, you didn't warn me. Well, there you go. Now with that said, let's begin. Day 19. I woke up this morning to a snowstorm. A full-blown blizzard. It's so white outside my window, it looks like the hospital is flying through the clouds. It's beautiful. The snow just keeps coming and coming. Those crazy naked trees I can see from my room look like they're juggling cotton balls. Goody and the other Daners couldn't get in because the roads aren't plowed, and so Nurse Moon and the rest of the night shift had to stay on, and they were not happy about it. They just wanted to go home and get some sleep. Cat Poop couldn't make it in either, so basically we all had the day off. We were making the staff crazy because we were so hyped up about the snow. Like any teenager would be, because they're still in the middle of school, technically speaking. It was Sadie's idea to go outside. Juliet said something about how the snow looked perfect for making snowmen, and the next thing you know, Sadie was asking if we could all go out in it for a while. At first, Nurse Moon said no, but then the other night Nurse McCutcheon, who always looks like she's forgotten something but can't remember what it is, said she would supervise us. The Moon said it was okay as long as two attendants were with us and we all stayed in a group. I hadn't been outside since I came here. We can't even open the windows more than a couple of inches. so I was excited about getting away from the stuffy rooms for a while. Only then I remembered that I didn't have any outside clothes with me. My parents had brought me some jeans and shirts and stuff, but no boots or coat or anything. I mean, it's not like we go on nature hikes or anything. No one else had any either. It turns out the hospital had some. I don't know if they were left over from other patients or what, and I didn't want to ask. I mean, if they were, why did they leave them behind? That's the kind of question that really doesn't have any good answer. Anyway, we bundled up in the coats and scarves and mittens and stuff. Not everything fit us exactly right, but it was good enough. My only gripe is that the coat they found for me was bright yellow, like some dog had peed in snow. But hey, it's not like I was shopping at Macy's. Once we were dressed, we followed downstairs. We had to go through two sets of locked doors, and it felt like we were prisoners being transferred from one jail to another. But finally, we made it out of the big square, into the, we made it out into the big square formed by the four wings of the hospital. As soon as we were in the yard, Sadie scooped up a bunch of snow, made a snowball, and threw it at Juliet. It hit her in the back of the head, exploding into a million flakes. Juliet made her own snowball and threw it back at Sadie, only she missed and hit one of the attendants. That was all it took. Within seconds, it was a full-on snowball war. There were no teams or anything, or it was everyone for themselves. We didn't have anything to hide behind, so basically, we just kept making snowballs and throwing them at whoever was closest. I thought for sure Nana McCutcheon would make us stop, but she just got out of the way and watched, with a little smile on her face. I made a mental note to be nicer to her from now on. Not that I've given her any trouble, but you know what I mean. I can be less of a pain sometimes. I picked one of the attendants in the back, and while and while I was laughing at him, I got hit in the side of the face myself. I turned to see who had thrown the snowball, and I saw Martha smiling from ear to ear. After we were all worn out from the snowball fight, Juliet started making the snowman she'd been talking about. She made a small ball of snow, then pushed it across the yard, making it bigger. Sadie and I helped her making smaller balls for the middle and head of the snowman. Martha stood, watching us but not joining in. I went over to her and said, "You want to see an angel?" She looked up at me with those big eyes and nodded. I walked over to a part of the yard we hadn't trampled over yet and lay on my back in the clean snow. I moved my arms and legs up and down in this jumping jack's motion, then stood up, leaving an imprint. "See," I told Martha, "it's a snow angel. Do you want to make one?" She nodded and threw herself into the snow. She kicked her arms and legs crazily, then got up. Her angel was a little lopsided, like it had fallen out of heaven or something, but it looked really cool. Martha laughed when she saw it. I think it was the first time I'd ever heard her laugh. It sounded like Christmas. "Let's make some more," I told Martha. We lay in the snow next to each other and made our angels. I was going to get up, but Martha took my hand and held it. She was wearing these red mittens they'd found for her, and I could feel her fingers gripping mine through my gloves. We just stayed like that, looking up at the sky while the snow came down. It kept falling, and for a little while it felt like we were flying through space and the snowflakes were stars rushing all around us. That made me think about the attendants again. About how the attendants. What? Let me fix that. Sorry. That made me think about the astronauts again. About how the air on Earth smells so bad to them. I took a deep breath and filled my chest with the cold air. It didn't stink. It smelled great for a change. Martha and I finally got up and helped the others finish the snowman. We'd brought a carrot for his nose, and Nurse McCutcheon had gotten us 2 cookies to use for his eyes. Julia took off the purple scarf and She found it in the clothes closet and wrapped it around the snowman's neck. "What are we going to name him?" Sadie asked when he was done. "How about Frosty?" Juliet suggested. "Too obvious," said Sadie. "It should be something unique, like him." "How about cat poop?" I said. Sadie laughed, but Juliet looked confused. "I don't get it," she said. Neither Sadie nor I enlightened her. Sadie's the only person I've told about my special name for the doc, and I kind of like that it's our secret. "What about Bone?" said Juliet. "What about him?" Sadie replied. "The snowman," Juliet said. "Why don't we call him Bone? Or Boney, like Frosty, but different?" Sadie raised one eyebrow. "Boney the Snowman," she said. "It's ironic." She looked up at Juliet. "And fucked up. I like it." Juliet grinned. Sadie turned to me and Martha. "Are we all in agreement?" she asked. I nodded, and so did Martha. "Then Boney it is," Sadie said. "Welcome to the world, Boney." We stood around looking at Boney for a while. Then Juliet started humming. A few seconds later, she started singing to the tune of Frosty the Snowman. This will be fun trying to do this. Alright. My singing is not the best, but we're doing it. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Alright. Boney the Snowman was a crazy, whacked out guy with tattooed skin and a goofy grin, and he liked to get real high. That wasn't bad, actually, but moving on. My voice sounds differently compared to my actual voice, but in my head, my voice was actually pretty good, but I don't know how it's going to come out in the recording. Anyway, Sadie and I laughed. Then Sadie sang some more. "There must have been some acid in the soda that he had, 'cause when he went and drank it, it screwed him up real bad." "Excellent," I said, applauding the two of them. "Your turn," said Sadie. I thought hard, trying to remember another verse of the Frosty song. It had been a long time since I'd sang it. It took a moment, but then I sang, badly. He led them to the psycho ward, right to the dear old doc. And when they asked him what was wrong, he told them... I couldn't think of how to end it. "Suck my cock," Juliet said. He told them, "Suck my cock." Sadie turned and high-fived her. It was exactly what Bone would have said. Then all of us threw ourselves into the snow, laughing so hard I was afraid Nurse McCutcheon would think we were having fits. Even Martha did it, although I don't think she really got why our song was funny. After that, we all went back inside, took off our snowy clothes, and sat in the lounge drinking hot chocolate, just like those golden, perfect families you see in holiday commercials. Already past day 19, and you can kind of already see why I said it seems like an R-rated book from at least the beginning of the third part. Told you. I'm actually putting my glasses for a second. Give me a moment. Yeah, just give me a second. I'm just cleaning my glasses so that way I can read it better. Okay, now I'm gonna have Frosty the Snowman in my head because of that scene. They made like adult, like a sort of like teenager adult version of Frosty the Snowman, but its name is Boney the Snowman. And it's not as sexual as you think it is. If you're thinking like an adult, it really isn't. It's not even close. Alright, let's do this. Day 20. I've got a bit of a cold today from being outside in the snow yesterday. That's okay though, because it was totally worth it to get out of here for a while. When I looked out the window this morning, I saw Boney still standing in the yard. There was a cardinal sitting on his head, picking at the carrot, and something, probably squirrels, had taken the cookies during the night. But it still looked pretty good. He was still holding up. Even better, I'm not the only guy anymore. There's another one. I guess the person who controls the guest list decided we needed a new face at our party. Anyway, his name is Rankin. He's a big guy, pretty normal looking. He reminds me of the guys who play football at school, the ones who think they rule the place because they can toss a ball around. I'm not a big fan of the jocks, I have to tell you. It's like God knows they're going to have crappy lives after high school is over, and nobody cares anymore that they can score a goal or touchdown or whatever, so he makes them the big heroes for a few years to make up for it. The only problem is the rest of us have to put up with them, which is totally not fair. Yeah, he said when Cat Poop introduced him. I'm Rankin. Hey. He lifted one hand and sort of waved at us, then quickly put it back in his lap and gave a stupid half grin, as if he knew how dumb he looked. Cat Poop waited a moment for him to say something else, but he didn't. Watching Rankin, I wondered if I'd Wow, Forrest, what the hell? Watching Rankin, I wondered if I had looked as clueless on my first day there as he did. Now I was a veteran, an old-timer. I also wondered if he was looking at me and thinking that I was crazy the way I'd looked at Sadie, Bone, and the others that day. Is there anything you'd like us to know about you, Rankin? The dog finally asked. Oh yeah, Rankin said, as if his brain had just been on pause and Cat Poop had hit the play button. I play football. I laughed, just a little bit, but everybody heard it and looked at me. Rankin's eyebrows were all scowling and he said, What? Nothing, I said. It's just that I was thinking you looked like a jock. He smiled. Oh, he said. Yeah, I am. I guess he thought I was complimenting him. Anyway, he was quiet for a few seconds, like he was trying to decide what to say. Then he said, I just get kind of down sometimes. I almost laughed again. He sounded like such a little kid. I get down sometimes. Yeah, probably because it's so hard being a popular jock and having everyone fall over themselves whenever you win a stupid game. What an idiot. Still, it's kind of nice not being the only guy. Even though it was only for a day, I definitely felt outnumbered after Bone left. I was sort of afraid Juliet, Sadie, and Martha were going to make me play house with them, or have a tea party, or paint our toenails. Not that I think Rankin and I will be best buds or anything. I wonder what he's in for. I know. He gets sad sometimes. Who doesn't? But there's gotta be something more going on in that big head of his. I try to figure it out, but honestly, I really don't care. Crazy is crazy. You either are or you aren't. Like they are and I'm not. It's pretty simple. I'm kind of giving up trying to convince Cat Poop that I'm not. After all, I've been here 3 weeks tomorrow. It's almost half my sentence. Clearly they aren't letting me out early for good behavior. So now I just go to my sessions and talk about whatever. Let Cat Poop think what he wants. Like today, he wanted to talk about friends. Do you have any friends? He asked me. Define friends, I said. People you enjoy spending time with, he suggested. People you share things with. Do invisible ones count? I asked. Because then there's Mr. Binky Fun Stuff and Diddles the Madcap Elf. Let's stick with real ones, said Cat Poop. I think he's getting used to me because he didn't even push his glasses up or tap his pencil. Mr. Binky Fun Stuff doesn't appreciate being called not real, I said. He's crying. You should apologize. Cat Poop scratched his nose but didn't say anything. Have it your way, I said after a minute. Sure, I have friends. Tell me about them, said Cat Poop. Why? I asked him. What do they have to do with anything? I'm just curious, he answered. I'd like to know what you find important in a friend. Cash is always nice, I said. And an entourage. I was thinking more along the lines of personality traits, he said. The qualities you value in other people. Well, cleanliness and godliness are always good, I told him. How about honesty? Asked Cat Poop. He totally ignores me now and when I'm being sarcastic. I don't know if I should be offended or not. Honesty is overrated, I said. How so? Well, if you're always honest, then you have to tell your friends everything, I said. And sometimes it's better not to. Give me an example, said Cat Poop. Say she asks you if her jeans make her look fat, I said. And they do. If you tell her that, she's going to hate you. Even if it's true, said Cat Poop. Especially if it's true, I told him. A real friend would lie and say the jeans look great. He wrote on his pad. Are you making notes for a self-help book? I asked him. Because I have lots of tips. So you don't think your friend would want to know that the jeans don't look good? He asked. She already knows they don't, I said. She just wants me to make her feel better. It's just one of those things you don't tell someone. Just like you would never tell your friend you hate her boyfriend. Or girlfriend, I added quickly. Boyfriend or girlfriend. Isn't that being dishonest? Suggested Cat Poop. What if that person isn't right for your friend? Shouldn't you say so? People always say they want to hear the truth, but they really don't, I said. Like how many parents really want to know that their kids are having sex or smoking? Even if they ask, they just want you to say that everything's fine. Then they can believe that it is. And you think that's healthy? He asked me. You're the shrink, I said. You tell me. I'm interested in hearing what you think, said Cat Poop. I waited a minute before I answered. What I think is that the goatee you're trying to grow looks ridiculous, I said. He looked surprised. Then he glanced at the mirror that hangs on the one side of the walls. See? I said. Honesty isn't so great, is it? Wow, Jeff, you just had to go there, didn't you? Wow, okay. Day 21. A couple of years ago, my dad took us all to Hawaii over spring break. One of the things we did there was learn how to scuba dive. It was sort of fun, even though when we first got in the pool to learn how to use all the gear, I was afraid the air would just run out and I'd drown. But I got used to it. And let me tell you, there's some far out stuff under the water. Our instructor said that something like 70% of the world is covered by water, and less than 1% of the population ever gets to go under there and look around. So when you do, you're seeing stuff that not many people get to see. My favorite was this fish that kept swimming up to my mask and butting his head against it. I had no idea what he was doing, but when we got back to the surface, the instructor said the fish was trying to fight his reflection in my mask. That's how I feel being in this place. Like I'm a diver looking at a bunch of really strange fish. Tape today. For one group session, Cat Poop, who by the way shaved off his goatee, so that's another point for me, had us do this completely ridiculous exercise. First he split us into two teams. Again, I ended up with Juliet, which left Sadie with Rankin. Martha got to be in the audience, and she still isn't exactly talking a blue streak. Then we had to pack these slips of paper. We had to pick these slips of paper out of 3 different boxes. The first one was a setting, the second was a situation, and the third was a line of dialogue. The idea was that we had to come up with a skit using the 3 different things. We had 10 minutes to come up with something, and then we had to perform it. I let Juliet pick the slips. Our setting was a theater. Our situation was that someone had forgotten something, and our line of dialogue was, "Would you like another cookie?" When we looked at what we had, we both groaned. I mean, come on, what are you supposed to do with that? But that's the whole point of the exercise, right? So we went off in a corner. We went off in a corner and threw some ideas around. Julia is the one who came up with the idea for the husband forgetting his wife's name. Brilliant. It totally worked. I was the husband, and Juliet was my wife. The idea was that we run into someone I work with during an intermission at a play, and I'm trying to introduce my wife, but for some reason, I can't remember her name. I decided to use Martha for the third person since she wouldn't have to say anything. She stood there and Juliet and I pretended to run into her, but I kept saying things about how great the show was, trying to avoid introducing my wife to Martha, and the whole time, Juliet was pretending to eat those cookies she had in her purse. That was how we got the lines of dialogue in. Juliet kept offering me cookies. Okay, so you kind of had to be there. Trust me, it was good. At least we thought it was. Sadie and Rankin's skit was better than ours, but in our defense, I had to say it's because they got way better things to work with. Their setting was a spaceship. The situation was that they were lost, and the line was, "How did that get in here?" The two of them sat in side-by-side chairs, like they were piloting a spaceship. Sadie was the captain, and Rankin was a brand new navigator on his first trip into space. He had managed to get them lost and was arguing about it with the captain. While they were fighting, a fly was buzzing around, making everything worse. That's when Rankin's character said, how did that get in there?" and opened a window in the ship to shoo the fly out. Because they were in space, they both got sent down the window along with the fly, which the two of them acted out by rolling around on the floor together and screaming. See what I mean about watching a lot of weird fish? Sometimes they look normal, but then one day they go and do something that totally surprises you, and it gets them landed in a place like this. I don't think anyone who knows me would ever have thought I'd do what I did. But I did. Day 22. It was the Fun with Marjorie and Eric show again today, otherwise known as my parents' weekly visit. Seeing them wasn't high on my list of preferred activities for today, but I didn't have much choice. It was that or, well, nothing. The theme of today's get together was why. As in, why did Jeff do what he did? Again, not really something I felt like discussing, but it wasn't up to me. Apparently, Cat Poop had talked to my parents before I came in, because the 3 of them seemed to have some kind of plan for getting me to talk about what happened. First, Cat Poop told my parents how well things had been going with me. Then he asked my parents to tell me how they felt when they found me that night. My mother immediately turned on the waterworks. She said she'd come upstairs and seen blood all over the floor. She said at first she thought I was playing a practical joke on her, and she'd laugh even though she thought it was a mean thing to do. When I didn't respond, she apparently started totally freaked out because my father heard her screaming and ran up to see what was wrong. I'm not saying she was lying or anything, but I do want to point out that she always said that if she hadn't become a lawyer, she would have been an actress. Seriously. A couple of years ago, she even performed in this completely tragic community theater production of Fiddler on the Roof. She was actually pretty good, which is why I wouldn't put it past her to make things sound more awful than they really were. I mean, finding your kid almost dead is bound to ruin your night. I get that. But it's like she was trying to make me feel even worse about it. My father didn't cry, but he said that seeing me on the floor like that was the most horrible thing that's ever happened to him. Then he described how he'd made tur- those tourniquets using some torn off sheets from my bed, and held me until the paramedics got there. He said he kept telling me how much he loved me, over and over, in case hearing it helped me stay alive. That got to me way more than my mother crying. My dad never says sappy stuff to us. He's the kind of guy who can sit through a movie that has everyone else bawling like babies, and all he'll say is, "Can you believe how big Julia Roberts' mouth is?" I'm serious. Nothing fits to him. He's like one of those cowboys in an old western. Listening to my parents talk about that night, I thought about the time Sadie had asked me who had saved me. She was right that it was my mom and dad and not the paramedics. If my mother hadn't come up to see me, and if my dad hadn't known what to do, I really would have died. 3 weeks ago, that's what I thought I wanted. Now things seem different. Not totally different, but different enough that I guess I'm glad they did what they did. But I wasn't about to tell them that. Then Cat Poop asked me how I felt about what my parents had said. What are you supposed to say to something like that? "Gee, I'm really sorry I freaked you out, and thanks for making sure it didn't work out." It just sounds so stupid, like the big moment in one of those cheesy made-for-TV movies where the kid who ran away from home and became a hooker does a giant boo-hoo after her mother fights off her pimp with an umbrella to get her off the street. I couldn't say those things, even if I was thankful for what they did. And I was. I am. Thankful. Sort of. On good days. What I did say was that I was sorry for making them worry. It seemed like a good compromise, right in between the stony, uncommunicative teenager and the cry till your nose runs breakdown I could have gone with. I said I was sorry they were afraid for me, and reassured them that everything was okay now. I should have left out that last part about everything being okay now, because that's one of those statements that the dog jumps on like a cat on a mouse. Sure enough, he said, "What's different about how you are today from how you were that night?" Oh man, he pushed me right into that one. Here we were back at the big why. I was supposed to show how much I'd learned about myself, and they were supposed to get some answer to explain it all. But like I keep saying, there is no big reason. I had to say something though, so I said, "I guess I've learned that no matter how bad things get, there are always people who love you." I won't blame you if you stop to go throw up right now. I know I would. But it sounds pretty good. But it sounds pretty good, right? If you were my parents, you'd buy it. And they did. I felt a little bad when I saw the look on my mother's face. She seemed really relieved, and worried all along that the reason I had tried to off myself was because I thought she didn't love me. But that was never it. I know she and my father loved me. This was never about them. I think Cat Poop knew I was handing them a big pile of crap and calling it a present because he pushed me even further and said, "How would you handle things differently now, Jeff?" What I wanted to say was, I locked my door. I was getting tired of having to make everyone feel better. I'm sorry I freaked everyone out. I'm sorry my parents are sad about it. But it's over. Can we all move on? I thought for a minute or two until I wasn't quite so steamed. Then I said, "I talked to somebody." I didn't say who. I just said I would talk to somebody. That way they could each think I meant them. It was the right answer, I guess, because Cat Poop finished with the third degree and moved on to some other stuff. It wasn't exciting, so I won't go into it. Basically, he talked to us about better ways to communicate, blah, 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 blah. I was really thrilled when it was all over and my parents went home. I was even more thrilled to go back to my room. Let me tell you, writing a report on Lord of the Flies, which is what I was doing for my English class assignment, is way better than spending an hour with the doc and my parents. Limited choice between discussing the symbolism of a pig head, on a stick and discussing my feelings, I'll take the pig head every time. Getting kind of hot in here, so I'm gonna get me a drink, which is actually right over here. Just wanted to see what time it was. Day 23. Something totally weird just happened. Okay, noise. It's fine. Let's start again. Day 23. Something totally weird just happened. I'm not even sure I want to write about it, but if I don't, I'm afraid it will just stay in my head, and I don't want it in there. It's about 3 in the morning. I woke up a while ago and had a pee, so I walked down to the bathroom at the end of the hall. The guys' bathroom here is like the ones at school. Sinks and toilets and showers all in one big room. When I walked in, I heard one of the showers running. That was kind of strange because people mostly shower in the morning, and we're really not supposed to be running around at night except if we have to. You know, go. Still, it wasn't really a big deal. I mean, we're all in here because we're a little bit off in the first place, so someone deciding to shower in the middle of the night is pretty tame on the scale of things. And so I started to pee, and that's when I heard it. And by it, I mean this groaning sound. I made myself stop peeing, which is really, really hard to do when you have to go, by the way, and listened, thinking that maybe I just heard noises in the pipes or something. But there it was again, definitely human, and definitely coming from the shower. Now, besides me, the only guy in here is Rankin, so I knew it had to be him, unless one of the night attendants had suddenly decided to practice some personal hygiene. And judging from the noise, Rankin wasn't feeling too well. I wasn't sure if I should ask if he was okay, or just leave him alone. Then the groaning got a little louder. My bladder was about to pop, so I finished peeing and walked toward the shower. I didn't want to scare Rankin, so I didn't say anything. If you're taking a shower in the middle of the night and not feeling too well, the last thing you need is someone pulling a psycho and yanking the curtain open. You know the scene. The thing about those curtains is, they don't really cover the opening to the shower totally. There are gaps on either side, almost like the steam from the showers had made the curtains shrink. It's not like you're flashing the whole world when you take a shower, but you can definitely see around them. What I saw through the crack was definitely Rankin. Too much of him, actually. I didn't mean to, but what I saw was his hand moving back and forth somewhere around his waist, if you know what I mean. Even with all that steam, it was pretty obvious what was going on. Suddenly, the groaning made sense. I wanted to turn around and get out of there, but I couldn't. I was afraid if I did anything, he'd hear me, and think I was spying on him. Even my heart beating sounded like a drum, banging away inside my chest. I just stood there, watching him but trying not to, and thinking of any way to get out of the bathroom. It isn't like I've never seen a guy with a heart on before. Sometimes a guy in gym class will get one in the showers, and everyone points and makes fun of him and calls him a fag, but we all know it's just what happens to guys. We can't help it. It's like that thing is just there, and it does whatever it wants. It totally is out of control. It's not like I've never jacked off. I'm 15 years old. Of course I do it. Any guy who says he doesn't is lying. That would be like having the coolest video game ever and never playing it. No one's that stupid. But I've never seen someone else doing it. It's one of those things you don't really think about other people doing. Probably because if you did, every time someone shook your hand, you'd be thinking about what else it had been holding on to. You just don't go there. Only now I was there, and in person. Not 2 feet away from me, Ranka was going at it like he was all alone in his bedroom with the door locked and the stereo on so no one would hear him. I could hear him getting more and more excited, and I knew what was going to happen. I could partly see his face. His eyes were closed, his mouth was sort of open, and he was breathing hard. Then he sort of grimaced, and I knew it was time to get out of there, while he was still riding high, and probably wouldn't notice if a train crashed through the wall in the bathroom. I waited too long. I was about to turn and go when he opened his eyes. He looked right at me. He looked right at me. At first he just blinked a couple of times, like he thought maybe he was seeing things and needed to clear his head. Then he realized I was real and he gave me this half smile and nodded, and we were just passing in the hallway. "Hey," he said. I nodded back. "Hey," I said. "Hey," like that. "Hey," like that. What an idiot. Rankin didn't say anything else, so I turned and left. I don't know what I expected him to do. I don't know what I would do if someone caught me spanking the monkey like that. Probably I'd drop dead. I know I wouldn't just say, "hey." And now I can't get the image of Rankin out of my head. That's the worst part. I keep picturing his hand and going up and down and hearing that groaning. I feel like such a queer. I have to stop thinking about it. Why did I have to go in there? Why did I have to see that? I can't tell you how much I did not need to see that tonight. Or any night. Maybe I shouldn't make such a big deal out of it. It's not like Rankin seems to care, so why should I? I should just try to forget it ever happened. That's what I'll do. I'll go to bed and forget about it. If it wasn't clear the last chapter, I think it made it pretty clear this chapter. That we are now delving sort of into R-rated territory. If not, kind of like in the middle of PG-13 and R, like literally right down the middle. Hmm. Day 24. You know how Hindus believe that when you die you come back as something or someone else, and that if you screw up the life you have now, you come back as something worse until you learn your lesson? Well, if that's true, then I must have really pissed off God, or whoever, in my last life. Otherwise, what happened today would never have happened. It's even worse than what happened last night. See, I'd done an okay job of forgetting what I'd seen Rankin doing in the shower. Even at breakfast, while he choked down his oatmeal, I could sort of pretend I'd just dreamed it. Then we had group, and that's when Cat Poop announced that we were going to do some more pairing off. As soon as he said it, I felt my stomach knot up. I closed my eyes and waited to hear him say I could pair with Sadie or even Juliet. But of course you know what happened. And it gets even worse if that's possible. The exercise we did involved picking questions out of a box. There were all those strips of paper in there, and each one had a question on it. Things like, what are you most proud of in your life? And if you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? We were supposed to pick a question and talk about it with our partner. I really, really hoped I got something easy, like, what is the meaning of life in 3 words or less? What I actually got was, what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you? I know. I swear to God that was the question. Sometimes I think there's someone up there just sitting around thinking of ways to make me look like a complete moron. Seriously, I bet there's an angel, or more likely a demon, assigned just to me. And every day it gets up and asks itself what it could do to ruin my life. Well, today it goes on. Today it got an A+. So Rankin and I pair off. I'm still not really looking at him, just sort of around him. And of course all I can picture is that big hand of his going up and down, and then I'm staring at his crotch, remembering what's there. And eventually the only place I can look is at his face. And when I do, I'm surprised to see that he doesn't seem the least bit embarrassed. Instead, he's looking at the paper in his hand. He's looking really hard, like he can't quite figure out what it says. Like it's written in Japanese or something. He looks and looks and looks, and finally he looks at me and says, "What do you think about when you jerk off?" I know you think I'm making this up, but I swear I'm not. That's exactly what he said. I sat there staring at Rankin, sure I'd heard him wrong. Then his big grin spreads across his face and he starts to laugh. "Got you," he said. I wanted to hit him. I really did. I couldn't believe he did that. He thought it was hysterical though. He was grinning from his big stupid jock grin from ear to ear and rocking back and forth with laughter. "Would you shut up?" I said. Rankin wiped his eyes and quieted down. "I'm sorry," he said. "But you should see the look on your face." "What does it really say?" I asked him. "Why?" he said. Don't you want to know the answer to the question I read?" "Not really," I told him. "All right," he said. He looked at the paper again and read the right question. "What's the hardest thing you've ever done?" He sighed. "I guess that would be telling my dad that I don't want to play football anymore." "I thought you liked to play football." "I do. I just don't want to play on the team anymore." "Why not?" I asked him. Rankin shook his head. "I just don't," he said. "What's your question say?" "Just a minute," I told him. "You can't say you just don't want to. We're supposed to talk about this crap. I want to know why you don't want to be Mr. Big Football Player." Rankin put his head down. For a second I thought he was going to tackle me, but he just sat there. When he looked up, I could see he was trying really hard not to cry. "Do you know what it's like to have everyone accept you? Do you know what it's like to have everyone expect you to be the best at something?" he said. I shook my head. "That's not a problem for me," I told him. "I'm not good at anything. Nothing important, anyway." "I see," Rankin said. "I'm good at throwing the ball and catching the ball and knocking people out of the way when they get between me and the ball. That's what I'm good at." "So what's the problem with that? Everybody loves jocks, right?" I admit I said it kind of sarcastically because he sounded like such a bonehead and I was still mad at him about what he'd done before. "Yeah," Rankin said, snorting. "Everybody loves you. When you win. Then you're the hero. But when you lose, you're just the stupid meathead who couldn't make the play." I was having a hard time feeling sorry for the guy. I know that sounds harsh, but I wasn't ready to let him off the hook for being a jock in the first place. Everybody knows those guys get most of the breaks in school, and it seems to me that if all they have to worry about is playing a dumb game, then they have it pretty easy. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Sorry about that, family member. "You know what my father said when I told him I wanted to quit?" Rankin asked me. "I wasn't there," I said. "You'll have to fill me in." "He said if I wasn't going to play football, I wasn't his son." "He did not," I said. "Why would he say something so stupid?" "Because it's how he feels," said Rankin. "That's all he sees me as, a football player. He was a football player. His dad was a football player. His dad was a football player. That's what the guys in my family are. But you're his kid, I said, still not believing him. And as far as he's concerned, his kid plays football. He laughed. Why do you think I'm here? Because you get down sometimes, I said, remembering what he said the first time in group. Yeah, said Rankin, but that's not the real reason I'm here. Then why'd you say that? I asked him. Come on. Nobody says why they're really here, Rankin answered. Not at first. Nobody wants to be the biggest freak. Didn't you? Didn't you? Didn't I what? I lie, he said. It's kind of hard to when you've got these, I said, showing him my wrists. But that doesn't say why, he reminded me. So we both lied, I said. Why are you really here? Because my father wants to know what's wrong with me. He sent you to the psych ward because you don't want to play football? You've got to be kidding. I'm not, said Rankin. That's why I'm here. That's messed up, I told him. Supremely messed up. Rankin nodded. Yeah, it is. So what's your question? I told him. And I think you know the answer to that one already, I added, knowing I was turning 100 different shades of red. Your wrists, he said. I looked at him. Did he really not get it? No, not my wrists, I wanted to say. It was walking in on you pulling your pork. Rankin either didn't think that was embarrassing or he was trying to pretend it never happened. But I don't think that was it. I think he honestly didn't think it was a big deal. I would. Seriously, I'd rather have someone walk in on me cutting my wrists than have them see me doing that. Between you and me, I think Rankin's priorities are a little screwed up. Day 25. I told Sadie about seeing Rankin in the shower. I wasn't going to, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I thought maybe if I told someone, I'd get it out of my head and into someone else's. You know, like that movie, The Ring, where the characters have to pass along the haunted videotape to someone else so that the ghost girl in the video won't come out and kill them. They know the girl will kill the person they give the tape to, but they do it anyway because they don't want to die more than they don't want to be responsible for someone else dying. Not that picturing Rankin would kill me, but it was going to be a pretty bad headache. So bad that I couldn't sleep. I went into the lounge and there was Sadie. I don't think she ever sleeps. I think she just watches TV all night. It was so weird, I said after I told her the basics. Why? She asked me. What do you mean, why? I asked back. Because it's weird. Please, she said. Like you don't do it too. I almost said I didn't, but that would have been an obvious lie. I mean, come on, I bet even the Pope does it. But he wasn't even embarrassed, I said. Is it big? Asked Sadie. Is what big? I asked. You know, Sadie said, looking down with her eyes. It! He is a big guy. I bet it's big. I didn't exactly notice, I told her. She grinned. Yes, you did, she said. I did not! I did not, I protested. She rolled her eyes. You know you did, she said. Guys always look. They have to compare. So is he bigger than you? You are such a perv, I said. What is it with guys, she asked me. Girls always compare. Big deal, I said. It's not as if there's a lot there's a lot of difference between. This time it was my turn to get to look down the general area for, you know, girl parts. How do you know? She shot back. How many of them have you seen? Enough, I said. Like Allie's? Sadie asked, surprising me. I felt myself turning red, which totally made me mad. Alright, I said. So I saw it. I guess it was pretty big. Are you happy? Are we talking about Allie or Rankin now? Said Sadie, grinning again. I should never have brought this up, I said. Relax, Sadie said. Let's get back to the problem. Why are you so freaked out about this? What if... I started. What if what? Asked Sadie when I didn't finish. I took a deep breath. What if you wanted me to see him? I said. Sadie laughed. So what if he did? That's kind of creepy, I said. Please, it wasn't like he asked you to help out or something, she said. You just wanted in. But he didn't seem to care that I saw him, I said. Why should he? Sadie asked. It's no big deal. You guys are always walking around with those things sticking out and touching yourselves and whatever. It's like you're so proud of them that you have to show them off. Sure, I said. It's like a dog show. Sometimes we even have talent contests. Sadie shook her head. Guys are so fucked up. You get all freaked out about other people thinking you're gay if you look at each other. Girls aren't so hung up about that. What do you mean? I asked her. Well, she said, have you ever practiced making out with one of your guy friends? No, I said. See, said Sadie, but girls do it all the time. You do? Sure. I've made out with lots of my friends. Sometimes more than that. More how? I asked her. You know, a little touching and stuff. No major lesbo action or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I'd probably do that with the right girl. I didn't know what to say. To be honest, she was freaking me out a little bit. I don't think guys do that kind of stuff, I said. She laughed. You just don't admit that you do, she said. Trust me, guys do it too. I don't know about that. I can't imagine many of the guys at my school playing around with each other during a sleepover, but maybe they do. They sure slap each other's butts enough in the locker room and on the field. I always thought that was weird, by the way. Guys are so afraid of people thinking they're queer, but the jocks are practically feeling each other up out there. I didn't want to think about it anymore, so I changed the subject. Actually, I suggested that we play the dialogue game. I figured that might distract Sadie from the whole sex subject. It didn't. As soon as we started playing, I knew I was in trouble. The movie was one of those really bad teen slasher movies. It took place at the summer camp, don't they all, where someone was offering all the counselors for no apparent reason. There are literally like 2 movies I could honestly think of in regard to that. That being the Friday the 13th, Part 1 and 2, actually. And whatever else involved Camp Crystal Lake. And the Sleepaway Camp series. Yes, there is such a thing as Sleepaway Camp. Honestly, out of all the horror movies that I've seen, Sleepaway Camp still to this day is like this lasting image in my mind because of a death scene that happens in the movie. Well, there's 2 of them that happen in the movie but so many of them happen, but you don't see them anymore. Like, it's not even funny. I mean, if you go to YouTube right now, if you were to go on to YouTube and look up And if you were to go and look at, if you were to watch Sleepaway Camp, the Sleepaway Camp death scenes, that you will see some deaths that haven't been seen, that haven't been done since. So it's very unique. One death in particular. I'm not going to spoil it if you guys want to watch the movie or want to see the death scenes. But yeah, there's one scene in particular that I remember very well in such a crazy way. It's not even funny. Anyway, the scene we were watching was about two of the counselors, a guy and a girl. For some reason, that one only made sense in a bad teen slasher movie. They had decided to go camping in the woods where there were perfectly good cabins right there. They were inside a tent, sort of half in and half out of their sleeping bags, and they were talking. It was perfect for the dialogue game. Let's do something different, Sadie suggested. I'll be the guy, you be the girl. She didn't wait for me to say okay, she just started in. Heather, there's no one in the woods. But I heard something, Sean, I said as the girl moved her mouth. Sean put his hand on Heather's cheek. It's just the wind, Sadie said. The girl looked like she didn't believe him. I'd feel better if I was in your sleeping bag with you, I said in her voice. As Sean stripped his sleeping bag when the girl in the movie slid out of hers, Sadie said, I hope you don't mind, but I sleep in the nude. Oh, I said, trying to sound like a girl who was surprised. I wish I'd saved my legs. That's okay, Sadie replied in a low voice. I like a girl with hairy legs. It turns me on. We both laughed. Then I did something I hadn't planned on. I slid my hand over and put it on top of Sadie's. My heart was... Okay, I was wondering... I noticed a notification on my thing that I wanted to see what that was. Anyway. My heart was fluttering like a crazy butterfly, and for a second, I almost pulled my hand back. But then Sadie folded her fingers around mine. She didn't say anything or even look at me. It was like she'd expected me to do it. We sat like that while we kept playing the game. You're so warm, I said in Heather's voice. That's because you make me warm, said Sadie. Oh, Sean, I said. I feel so safe with you. Safe enough to go all the way, said Sadie. I hesitated along with the girl in the movie. When she started moving her lips again, I said, I think so. Just at that moment, a knife plunged through the tent wall. The guy and the girl screamed and tried to get away as the killer came at them, but they were tangled in the sleeping bag. The knife came down again and again, and blood went everywhere. So much for Heather's first time, Sadie said in her normal voice. She died a virgin. How sad. She was still holding my hand, but now that we weren't playing the game, it felt a little strange. Still, neither of us let go of the other's hand. I kind of felt like I should say or do something, but I didn't know what. We sat like that until the movie was over. I can't even tell you how it ended. All I could think about was how warm Sadie's hand was, and how I hoped I wasn't sweating or anything. I forgot all about Rankin and, well, everything. It was like when I touched her, some magnetic force in her hand erased all of the stuff in my head. Alright, you two. I think that's enough television for tonight. Nurse Moon's voice startled me. I'd forgotten all about her. For a minute, it was like Sadie and I were just sitting in the living room at home. But Mooney's voice reminded me where we really were. It also reminded me, I like that cool breeze from my window. It's really nice. It also reminded me that Sadie and I weren't supposed to be holding hands. I let go of hers just as Nurse Moon walked over and clicked the TV off. Off to bed, she said. I mumbled a good night to Sadie without looking at her, then walked back to my room. As I was going in, I heard Sadie whisper, "Hey." I turned around. She glanced back at the lounge, then leaned in and kissed me quick on the lips. "Good night," she said. Well, things are getting interesting now, isn't it? We just had our first ever moment. Well, we've had a few of them with them watching the TV and all that, but this is our first official Jeff and Sadie moment. Let's see how it goes from here on out. Day 26, the penultimate day of part 3. Also, I need to check to make sure we're all good. Okay, we're good. Day 26. Oh man. Oh man. Cat Poop cannot find out about this. Nobody can find out about this. If they do, Sandy and I are both screwed. Okay, so after Sadie kissed me goodnight last night, she went back to her room. Nothing else happened, but the thing is, I kept wondering what could have happened. And the more I thought about it, the more I wished something had happened. I tried not to picture it, but when I was focusing on something else, I kept seeing Rankin again. I definitely didn't want to go there, so I switched back to Sadie. That's when I got up. I told myself I was just going to go to the bathroom. And I did go. I went in there and peed. I thought about taking a shower to relax, but shower equals Rankin, and that was not helping. So I started to go back to my room. But when I walked into the hallway, I ran into Carl. I haven't mentioned him before because he wasn't important before, but now he's really important. Carl walks through the halls every half hour to make sure no one is doing anything they shouldn't be doing. He's not an attendant exactly, because he doesn't help the nurses wish with anything medical. He's more of a night watchman. Actually, there are 2 watchmen, and they alternate nights. The other one is a guy named Frank. Frank's not very friendly. He just does his rounds and almost never says anything. Honestly, I don't think he'd care if he found one of us dead on the floor. He'd just keep going. But Carl is different. Carl's a nice guy. He's gotta be at least 60. He reminds me of my grandfather. Actually, he is a grandfather. I know because he showed me pictures of his grandkids. You always know when Carl's around because his keys jingle when he walks, like he's kind of bouncing the keys knocked against his leg. You'd think it would be totally distracting, but it's actually kind of reassuring to hear him walking past my room. Hey, sport. Hey, sport, Carl said when he saw me. He calls everybody sport. It must be a grandpa thing, because mine does it too. Can't sleep? He asked. Just had to, you know, pee, I told Carl. He jangled his keys. I know how that is, he said. The older you get, the more you go. I must go 4 times a night. I've got a bladder like a leaky roof. Right, I said. I mean, what do you say when someone tells you about their bladder? Gee, maybe you should wear a diaper? Well, you get back to bed, said Carl. I'm heading over to see the other folks for a while. He meant he was heading over to the adult ward. Carl always talks about the patients as if they're his next door neighbors. I guess he doesn't want to make us feel bad about being here. Unlike Frank, who I once heard whistling the theme music from the Looney Tunes cartoon show while he was making his rounds. You know, I'm terrible at that, but you know what I'm saying. That was terrible whistling, but it'll do. See you, sport, Carl said as he walked away. See you, I said back. I started to go to my room, but something made me turn around. I looked down the hall to where the girls' rooms are. Carl had just walked through, and I knew he wouldn't be back for at least half an hour. As long as Mooney stayed in the nurse's station, I would have 30 minutes before anyone checked on me. I moved before I could stop myself. I was at Sadie's door in about 10 seconds, and inside right after that. Then I went to her bed. She was asleep on her back. Her hands were on her stomach, and her hair was all over the pillow. Her mouth was open, but she wasn't snoring or anything. She was just asleep. I leaned down and kissed her, just like in the movies. When I pulled my head back, her eyes were open, and she was looking at me with this dreamy expression. Hey, she said, all sleepy. Hey, I said. Mind if I share your sleeping bag? She didn't say anything, but she scooted over and lifted the blanket and sheet. I got in next to her. Carl will be back in half an hour, I said. Honestly, until right then, I hadn't known I was going to do what I did next. I reached out and put my hand on Sadie's breast. She was wearing a t-shirt, but I felt everything. I wasn't sure what to do next. Then Sadie put her hand on mine, like she had when we were sitting on the couch. It's okay, she said, still sounding half asleep. You can pretend I'm Allie. She took my hand and slid it under her t-shirt. Okay, I just had to make sure I was getting the right phrasing for this part. Her nipple poked into my palm, and the skin was warm. I squeezed. Sadie made this funny little noise, like a sigh and a groan all at once. Then she took my hand and moved it down to her panties. I felt the elastic waistband and stopped there. My heart was beating so hard I was sure she could feel it. It's okay, she said again. Guys, I'm just gonna say right now, this is some literal R-rated stuff going on right here between two teenagers right now. Jeez, yeah. You guys don't even know what is going in my mind right now. Like, not even trying to not just the fact that I'm reading a book and I have to visualize what I'm reading, but I'm also feeling kind of uncomfortable reading this. Because you gotta remember, Jeff is a 15-year-old. I don't remember how old Sadie is. But Jeff is 15 years old. And having to read a scene that involves two teenagers, basically almost to the point where they're gonna get it on at some point. You probably know whether or not they are. But still, it's a bit uncomfortable now that I'm 29 years old and I'm reading a scene involving two teenagers looking like they're about to get it on. Or at least they're doing a lot of flirtatious things right now. You gotta understand, it's whenever I see a young character doing something that involves something like what I'm reading, it can make an adult uncomfortable because, well, they're adults and you're reading a scene involving minors. Well, teenagers, but minors nonetheless. But hey, I got myself into this, I gotta keep going. I slipped my fingers underneath the elastic and felt hair. I don't know why, but I was surprised that it was as rough as mine is. I thought girls would have really soft hair down there, like rabbit fur or something. It felt strange. Also, I'm used to feeling, well, something down there, and it wasn't there. Sadie made a soft groaning sound and kissed my neck. I could feel myself getting hard, but I didn't know what to do next. Was I just supposed to stick it in? Was there something else I was supposed to do first? In the movies, they always end the scene before you see that part. It's not like someone gives you a manual or anything. I just figured that when the time came, I'd known what to do. But there I was, and I had no clue. Sadie put her hand into my boxers. I pulled away from her and rolled onto my side. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I hear Carl," I said. "His keys." I didn't hear anything," Sadie said. "It's probably just the wind." She started to touch me again, but I wasn't hard anymore. "I'm sorry," I said. "I should go." I didn't wait for her to say anything else. I just left. Of course Carl wasn't in the hall. I knew he wasn't. I ran back to my room as fast as I could and got into my own bed. Day 27. In the final chapter of part 3. Now do you guys know why I said we're delving into R-rated? If that last scene did not tell you that we are delving into R-rated stuff right here, I don't know what to tell you. Day 27. I knew I couldn't avoid Sadie forever. I mean, it's not like there's anywhere to get away from people for very long around here. In fact, I pretty much ran into her first thing at breakfast. "Hey," I said, which is so incredibly witty that you can applaud my genius anytime you want to. "Hey," Sadie said, "take my advice. Stay away from the muffins. They look like blueberries, but they're actually raisins. Totally disgusting." She was talking like it was any other day and not the morning after I tried to have sex with her, but couldn't keep it up. I figured she was just being nice and pretending it hadn't happened. "I'm sorry about what happened," I said. Lucky for me, no one else had come in yet, so I didn't have to worry about anyone eavesdropping. Well, except for anyone listening on the hidden microphones, which, by the way, I totally believe are planted around here. "What about it?" Sadie asked, poking at her oatmeal with a spoon. "You know," I said, not believing she was going to make me actually say it. "Not being able to—" "Oh, that," said Sadie, waving her hand like she was chewing away a fly. "Don't worry about it. We were just fooling around, right? It's not like it was our honeymoon. I just wanted you to know that it wasn't because of, you know, you or anything." "Oh, I know," Sadie answered. "I never thought it was. It's all about you." "Gee, thanks," I said. I felt like she'd slapped me. "No," she said, looking at my face. "I didn't mean it that way. I meant I know it's because of you. You and Allie." "Me and Allie," I repeated. "Sure," Sadie said. "You're in love with her and she doesn't love you. Or something like that. I still haven't quite figured it all out, but I know it's about Allie." "It's not like that," I said, shaking my head. "She's just my best friend." "Best friend," Sadie repeated, making air quotes with her fingers so that I would know she didn't really believe me. "Okay, so you and Allie are best friends. That doesn't mean you don't want to be more than that. So what's the problem?" "It's not a problem," I said. Or at least it wasn't. Not until Burke came into the picture. "Who's Burke?" "Allie's boyfriend." It was the first time I'd said his name out loud since coming to the hospital. It tasted like raw onions. Sadie nodded. I get it now. You're jealous because Burke's got Allie, and Burke's not jealous because you and Allie are friends. That is such a guy thing. He probably gets all pissed off because he thinks she spends more time with you than with him. Right, I said. And because she's a girl and thinks boyfriends are the most important thing in the universe, she told you she couldn't spend so much time with you. Something like that. Sort of. God, girls make me sick sometimes, said Sadie. Here's this jerk who'll probably dump her in a month and she gives up her best friend for him because she's too insecure to handle the fact that she likes to hang out with another guy. What a stupid bitch. I didn't say anything. Allie isn't stupid and she isn't a bitch. If she was, what happened between us would be easier to forget. But she's not like that at all. Only I couldn't tell Sadie that because it would make her think I wasn't telling the whole story. Which I wasn't. That's why you did it, isn't it? Sadie said after a minute. Because you lost your best friend. Pretty much, I said. I don't know. Maybe I thought it would make her feel sorry for me or something. Pretty stupid, huh? Not stupid, said Sadie. Sad. Especially because she doesn't deserve a friend like you. Then she got up and hugged me. I totally wasn't expecting it. Like I said before, my family isn't big on the whole affection thing. I mean, Amanda hugged me when she saw me, but that was just a case of temporary insanity. Normally, she would never do that. Even Allie has never hugged me more than a couple of times, and she comes from a big family of huggers. Unless I just have this invisible sign on me that says no hugging. But Sadie ignored the sign. She hugged me really hard, patting my back and squeezing me. I wasn't sure what I should do, so I patted her back. That seemed to work because she let go of me. I'm so sorry that happened to you, she said. But you know what? You don't need her. It's time you had friends who see how great you are. Maybe, I said. No, maybe, said Sadie, taking my hands and holding them. Her thumbs touched my wrists and I could feel her rubbing my scars. I let her. I want you to know that you can tell me anything, Sadie said. Anything. Thanks, I told her. You too. Aren't you two a cute couple? I looked up and saw Rankin grinning at us. He was carrying a plate piled with scrambled eggs, sausage, toast, and everything else that could fit on it. I don't think I could eat that much food in an entire day, let alone for breakfast. Rankin took a seat at the table while Sadie went back to her chair. To tell the truth, I was kind of relieved that Rankin had interrupted us. I mean, I was happy that Sadie wasn't mad, and it was nice of her to say everything she said, but I had pretty much used up all of my sharing time minutes, if you know what I mean. Rankin was ignoring us and concentrating on his breakfast. And I mean concentrating, as in he was staring at it like it was a math problem he needed to figure out. Finally, he picked up a sausage and bit one end off. Take it easy on that thing, Rankin, said Sadie, looking at me and winking. You know what they say about playing with your sausage too much? I couldn't believe she'd said that. Stop it, I mouthed at her. But it didn't matter. Rankin didn't get the joke anyway. He wrinkled up his eyebrows and said, I'm not playing with it, I'm eating it. He put the rest of the sausage in his mouth and chewed it. Sadie looked at me and dimpled. You guys are weird, Rankin said, and dug into his eggs. That is the end of part 3 of Suicide Notes. This is where things for part 4 are going to take a very drastic turn on more than one situation here. It is going to be such an interesting thing going on here. It's the type of thing that is going to be dark in a way, but also it's going to delve into Jeff's interactions with both Rankin and Sadie. Now, I say those two names specifically because Rankin, in a way, has turned Jeff's life a little bit upside down because of what happened in the bathroom. But also Sadie is involved in this because of their interactions that they've had. From at first having the two of them watching a movie in silence where they're like making up their own story for the characters involved, to their first kiss, to nearly having a sexual encounter, like a sexual involvement, a sexual act involved here. It was close, but it didn't actually happen. But even then, this book started out, like I said before, I said from the very beginning, before I read this part, I gave everybody who's watching this a warning. Parts 1 and 2 were very much PG-13. Part 3 is where it starts going a bit into the R-rated territory more and more as the days go on. And we're not even done yet. We still got 2 parts to go. For the next part, it will be day 28 through day 36. And trust me when I say, things are going to happen that are going to turn Jeff's life really upside down. You'll just have to find out what it is. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this reading, even if it was a bit adult at times. Even though it was pretty adult at times. But either way, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good rest of your night. And until tomorrow morning or early afternoon, when I watch the Nintendo Direct, when I do the reaction to the Nintendo Direct plus Indie World live stream that Nintendo did. Until then, this is Forrest Walpole, signing off.